Good evening. Welcome to QUT Web News.
Good evening.
This year's federal budget is in turmoil again as the Gillard government breaks its promise to 1.5 million families. Today's decision to scrap Family Increase Tax Part A will cost families hundreds of dollars each year. It comes as more Liberal MPs urge opposition leader Tony Abbott to dump his paid parental leave scheme.
Treasurer Wayne Swan pledged more money to families in last year's budget.
These new measures are good for low and middle income families because they help them make ends meet.
The scheme was supposed to be funded by the mining tax, but the projected $2 billion revenue has plunged by over half. The Finance Minister confirmed this morning that the government can no longer afford the $1.8 billion payout to families.
The government has to make responsible economic decisions. They're not easy decisions, and this is a decision that is responsible.
However, the school kids bonus and supplementary payments to low-income earners will remain.
What was then a rock-solid commitment and a stick with which to beat the opposition mercilessly has now been dropped.
But Abbott is facing his own struggles with the budget as pressures mount from high-profile Liberals to dump the opposition's parental leave plans.
I would say at the moment, let's not have the parental scheme as part of the offering.
The problem with this policy is that you can't explain it.
But the opposition leader stands by it.
We will do it in a way which is consistent with budget responsibility. We will certainly do it in a way which is consistent with budget responsibility, but it will happen.
Lizzie Mulheron, QUT News.
Official interest rates are now at an historic low. The Reserve Bank this afternoon cut interest rates 0.25% to 2.75%. RBA Governor Glenn Stevens says economic growth remains below trend and allowed scope to ease the cash rate. It remains to be seen how many banks will pass on the full cut to homeowners.
Premier Campbell Newman has been talking up the economic outlook for Queensland. That's despite some indicators suggesting things aren't quite so rosy.
The Premier started the day on a positive note, launching a new apartment block at Albion. Campbell Newman says the construction industry will play a big part in Queensland's future, but says he's most excited about what the tourism industry is currently doing for the anaemic Queensland economy.
One of the exciting little stories that's going on right now is that people are coming back to this state for holidays and for business.
At a media club lunch later in the day, the Premier was keen to outline his plans to get Queensland out of the financial doldrums. Premier Newman says the government's economic message hasn't sunk in.
And sadly, it pains me to say today that still some people don't understand, and I use the word carefully and soberly, how desperate our situation is.
The news comes at a particularly bad time for Brisbane, with the new productivity report revealing a widening economic gap between Brisbane's northern and southern suburbs. The report by the Melbourne-based Grattan Institute reveals an almost $10,000 difference in salaries on either side of the river. Northern residents are better paid and more educated than those in the south.
What this means is that it's harder for people in outer suburbs to be able to access the range of jobs that's possible for people in the inner areas to access, and that affects productivity and also their access to opportunity.
The report showed similar divides opening up across Australia's other major capital cities. John Healy, QUT News.
The amount of people infected with HIV in Queensland has doubled over the past 10 years, with 88% of those affected being male. Free rapid HIV tests are now being introduced by the state government in an attempt to combat these alarming figures.
In 1987, the Grim Reaper ad was used to scare the public into taking HIV seriously. More than 2 decades later, health professionals warn the message has been forgotten. In an effort to turn that around, rapid HIV tests will be available from sexual health clinics from June this year.
It's similar to a pregnancy test, except that it's done with blood and takes a little bit longer.
Healthy Communities charity in Newstead has tested about 5 people each week since trials began in November.
I think it's a really good step, having rapid HIV testing available. It has the possibility to increase testing, and I hope it does.
Old methods of HIV testing left people waiting weeks to hear their results. Now with the rapid test kit, people can know within half an hour whether they test negative or positive. 88% of those infected with the virus are male. The Health Minister says the rapid test is the beginning of better sexual health in Queensland.
They may not have got around to being tested, it may be too invasive, too concerned about it, but if something's easy, if you've got the right people there providing a supportive environment, we've got a greater chance of uncovering HIV cases in the community.
Rapid testing has been used in other countries for more than 5 years. Sarah Orr, QUT News.
South East Queensland mayors are banding together to encourage people to get behind a push for a better transport system. The idea is that Queenslanders can simply register their support by getting online and giving a beep.
Council of Mayors Chairman Graham Quirk outlined that the Give a Beep campaign is aimed at securing more federal funding.
And we are making a plea to both the government and to the opposition to not forget South East Queensland.
He listed 36 critical projects, including the Pacific Highway upgrade and the proposed second range crossing linking Toowoomba. The campaign is aimed at all residents in South East Queensland, and as well as the website, a billboard will travel around the region, ensuring maximum exposure.
We want to make sure that, that no matter where you live in South East Queensland, one of the fastest growing areas in Australia, that the right infrastructure is there whether you live in Toowoomba or anywhere in South East Queensland. It's important for all of us.
Extra funding would reduce congestion, boost local businesses' productivity, and ultimately create more jobs in city and regional communities.
The more support the campaign receives from South East Queenslanders, the greater power the councils will hold when fighting for their share of the federal budget.
To show your support, go to www.giveabeep.com.au and hit the beep button. Whitney Angell, QUT News.
Some of Queensland's most outstanding citizens have been honoured today. Governor Penelope Wensley thanked each one for their exceptional contribution to society.
Today's award recipients included the Mayor of the Lockyer Valley, Steve Jones. He's recognised for his contribution to the community after the Queensland floods in 2010 and 2011. When floods devastated the Lockyer Valley, he led his community in helping rebuild their homes and lives, but says today's award is for everyone involved.
This is not an award to me, this is an award to the people that took up the challenge in the Lockyer Valley, and there's a lot of those people, and I was part of a team. And, that team has done the very best it can, and I think it's succeeded in many ways.
The Mayor acknowledges his family's support since the devastating floods.
The Australian Honours System recognises the special impact Australian citizens make on their communities locally, nationally and overseas.
Today's awards recognised a wide range of services, from charities to armed services and even the arts.
We must always act to honour all men and give honour to whom honour is due.
Another awards ceremony will be held tomorrow. Bernadette O'Connor, QUT News.
In sport, the Manly Sea Eagles beat Saint George Illawarra 24-18 in last night's NRL match. Meanwhile, Sydney Roosters utility Daniel Mortimer has committed to another 2 years with the team.
The Sea Eagles have come out on top against the Dragons in last night's NRL match. Manly were on the back foot for most of the game, but won after a George Tafua try 10 minutes from full time.
Tafua got it down, what an effort!
St George Illawarra winger Brett Morris hurt his knee early in the game and was forced off the field, while Manly lost fullback Brett Stewart to a hip injury at half-time.
Really, we just didn't want to risk him. The second half, at half-time, he cooled down, so decided to leave him off till we know what's going on.
The pair will undergo scans today to see if they're fit to play for New South Wales in State of Origin 1 on June 5. And Daniel Mortimer has signed a 2-year contract extension, keeping him with the Sydney Roosters until the end of the 2015 season. There were reports rival club St George were interested in Mortimer earlier this season, but the utility says he's keen to remain a Rooster. Harrison Orchard, QUT News.
Time now for a look at the weather. A fresh start around Brisbane this morning, warming up to a beautiful day. Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast both had a cooler start this morning, warming up to a top of 23. Ipswich and the Gold Coast both had a high of 21. Around the nation tomorrow, a few showers expected for Brisbane, Sydney and Perth. A cool start for Canberra and Hobart, warming into a beautiful day with a top of 20. A wet day across Queensland tomorrow with rain expected for most of the state. Showers expected from Cairns down to Rocky, while Bundaberg could be in for a thunderstorm. A cloudy day for Mount Isa with a high of 31. Brisbane should expect showers over the next 2 days, clearing to a mostly fine day on Friday. A top of 24 degrees tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. And that brings you up to date with the weather.
That's all the news we have for tonight.
We'll be back tomorrow night with more QUT Web News. Good night.
Good night.